I'm Kareem Rae, your host at the One Soccer Nation podcast. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Warren Smith, co-founder of USL Arkansas, and a distinguished leader in professional sports with over 25 years of experience building successful sports teams and stadium solutions. Warren has played a pivotal role in bringing teams like Sacramento Republic FC and San Diego Loyal to life, leading them to success both on and off the field. He's been instrumental in several major projects, including elevating teams like the Portland Timbers to MLS. Today, we'll be diving into the extensive career and the strategies behind launching and growing professional soccer clubs. Warren, it's an honor to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Kareem. It's a pleasure meeting you, and I look forward to our conversation today.
Absolutely. So one of the questions I always ask in the beginning is, how did you get involved in the beautiful game?
Kareem, I played one game of soccer in my life. I broke my leg in the first minute, so I hated the game. Back in high school, went back and played college football, and but got into professional baseball. And we were asked to take over the Portland Beavers back in 2004. Company that I was at and founded was the Sacramento RiverCats, AAA team in Sacramento. And man, we got up there and knew exactly how to turn a baseball team around, but it came with a little soccer team called the Portland Timbers. I wasn't on the ground up there, but I was on the executive team that would discuss, how we would turn this around. So I got to watch kind of how this happened. And what I fell in love with is the relationship between fan and brand, fan and team. It's so different than all the other American sports. It's why I think it's growing so quickly here in the United States, and also why the young people have just become so attracted to it. Not just because they played it, but it's because they have a voice, man. They have they're a part of the vision of the club, right? And so Portland, obviously, we sold that to Merritt Paulson in 2007. He said he wanted to get to Major League Soccer. We thought he was crazy. He showed us how much we didn't know. I remember my partner who passed away, Art Savage, at one point kind of laughed at the concept, and now he's, one of the most valuable franchises in the league. So happy to play my small role in making a little bit of difference. One of the things I love about soccer is the difference these teams can make to the community. Imagine having an 18 to 34-year-old, asking to be close enough to you to provide feedback all the time, to participate in everything that you do. And then the other stuff that we can do together in the community is pretty darn cool. So anyways, I'm excited to be in this space, to make a little bit of a difference, and to continue my role in helping it propagate.
Absolutely. Well, my condolences to you and your family and close friends. In regards to, you building being a part of multiple projects, what would you say you're most excited about with USL Arkansas, with the project that you guys are currently working on right now?
Well, first of all, I understand my grandmother moved there in 1990. So I've been going to this region for 35 years. And my parents moved there to care for her. She passed in 2003. So what was an annual or biannual trip has become, almost an every week trip now. And what I love about this community is just, first of all, nobody really knew about it, number one. Now that these companies, JB Hunt, Tyson Chicken, Simmons Foods, and the number one company in the world, Walmart, are headquartered there, you've just seen this propagation of growth from people moving into the region. So 60% of the population that lives there now is not from Arkansas. That's a massive change in a short period of time. So it's changing at a very rapid pace, but it's been able to keep its integrity. It's been able to keep its history, and so I'm really excited about the difference this sport can make for the people there. One of the big companies did a survey with their associates recently, and the number one complaint that they had is not enough professional sports. They have to drive 3.5, 5 hours to actually get that kind of entertainment. Granted, there's AA baseball, but that's they just feel like they need something more, right? So I'm excited to, one, deliver something for them that can help them be entertained. Two, to help the community ultimately grow in a way that will help to attract more people and keep people. And lastly, just to make a difference culturally. And it's very diverse. You got people from all four corners of the world that live there. To give you an example, there's an Indian community that's trying to build a cricket facility. And, you can imagine what, it's America 101, right? It's just, it's pretty amazing community. But it's also still not known, right? So the last thing I think we can do is actually help bring some attention to this region by playing some of their peers, the Oklahoma Cities, the Colorado Springs of the world, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. What would you say are some key metrics that you guys looked into before making a decision to say, hey, we want to launch a team in USL Arkansas?
Well, it's growth rate. So number one, it's not a massive market. Okay. It just reached the top 100 last year. I think it's 98 on the list. But within 10 years, it will be in the top 75. Within 20 years, it'll be in the top 50. That's the type of growth that you are having here. Top 50 markets, that's USL Championship. So we're blessed enough to be awarded a championship. So we're building the club not just for today, it's really for tomorrow. We're starting with a modular facility that will be able to expand or detract depending on what our need is. I know we're the other thing is the wealth. I mean, so everyone knows that there's families that have a lot of wealth. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the expendable wealth that each family has. It's double the average household income than the rest of the country. Okay. I mean, so the country's average, it's doubled. And the cost of living is a lot lower. And when we consider both factors, these people have generally pretty good lives. In fact, we're going through this branding process and it's a joke, but it's really true. If we could name this team Quality of Life FC, we would do that. These people, they don't want to move there but they get there and they don't want to leave. I mean, it's amazing how many times we hear that story because you've got such a great life financially, but even more so, participating in the outside. The Ozarks are amazing. Anyways, those metrics, so the wealth, the growth rate, the corporate support. Give an example, Walmart requires every company that has a certain amount that they sell through the company to actually have a VP level position to be able to make buying decisions on the spot, living in that market. So you've got these corporations that have their second largest office in the country located there in Bentonville. So, I mean, all that, the corporate support, the fact that, 60% of the population is not from there. The last thing I'd say is everyone would look at, I think, all of the South as American football markets. And it's also amazing, though, that when you look at the South, at how those are some of the most successful franchises in soccer that we have, right? To look at Atlanta, right? Example, Miami. Now, throw the Messi thing out, right? So, and even in our league, you look San Antonio, right? But so everyone would think that it's SEC football. But the youth, again, are the ones that are pushing, right? They're less than, in one of the markets, New Orleans, as a matter of fact, 10% of the age of 18 and under are fans of the NFL. 10%.
Wow.
40% are fans of the EPL. So that shows kind of what's coming, not just what's kind of already here, right? Is how much of a dynamic shift is happening in professional soccer in the United States.
100%. And it's so exciting to see because, right now NFL is the leading sport in the US, and then you got the NBA, MLB, And then I think MLS currently holds the fourth position in population in sports in the United States. But as you mentioned, there is a change coming, and it's coming fast. What would you say the 2026 World Cup, FIFA World Cup, the impact that it's going to have on the population of soccer in the country?
Well, Kareem, I don't think we can even guess at what that's going to do because if you want to history, if the best thing for us is to learn from history, right? So back in 1994, I'm not sure the United States really understood what was happening even back then, right? So it took the World Cup coming to the United States to really to fix the professional system. You know, that led to MLS starting in 1996. That led to the restructuring of, you know, kind of the lower divisions into the USL, which took time, as you know. I mean, we had the NASL and USL, and you had their battles, but ultimately, you know, system's been fixed, right? I don't think we can really comprehend the impact.
Mm.
The other thing is, you know, to have the things like the Club World Championships coming, granted, we've had friendlies that have come over to the United States and have made a difference. We've had Copa, but to have, you know, the best teams in the world coming here next year to actually play club championships that in matches that mean something. Wow. And that's the year before the World Cup, right? We're going to have a growth. We're all predicting a growth of, you know, we usually see a growth somewhere between say 6 and 10% in our fandom or tickets, and I'm guessing it's going to be in the 20% range.
Wow.
And you know, can we sustain it is the question. And I think with the youth coming in, we have a couple nice things, right? We have after that we've got the United States Olympics and LA Olympics in 2028. So you're going to have a lot of soccer programming there, and then potentially the Women's World Cup in 2031. So I just think the next 10 years here in the United States is the center of soccer in the world for sure.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, and you've been around longer than me. I've been in it for about on the business side for 2 years, learning 2+ years. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I got to say that I love what you guys are doing with the podcast that you guys have. I think it's a very cool approach. I'm not too sure if any other club has done that. So I really wanted to comment on that. Like amazing. And I think it gives the community great insight into where you guys are currently, what you guys are working on, and where you guys are going. So I think the community would love that too. With saying that, you mentioned a lot of programming along the way within the next 10 years. But if we look back, you know, as you mentioned, 1994 World Cup. But even like back, I remember listening to a few podcasts, and back in the days, like the 2000s, you know, investors were asking, is soccer going to survive? And, you know, now it's kind of laughable, like it did survive. We're in 2024 now and soccer's thriving. So what would you say to investors now that are looking at soccer and they want to add that to their balance sheet?
Well, I mean, it's believe it or not, it's really interesting. It's still, well, first of all, sports as an asset class or being recognized as an asset class is very new. Okay. And it took really private equity to get into that asset class for that to really become on everybody's mind. Right now, I know of family offices that would never look at sports that are now looking at sport.
Wow.
Okay. So the education around just sports in general has gone through a massive growth over the last few years. What I tell people is get in now, right? It's all about valuation. What kind of valuation can we derive? And you want to hold these assets for a long time. You know, when we got into the Sacramento RiverCats, granted AAA baseball, you know, it had an exit for the family, the Savage family, and you know, upwards of 12x, right? So get in early. Find the right location. Just don't build a stadium. Make sure that you're putting a stadium where it's going to help you in the long term. In fact, if it's better to overspend on a stadium, if it's going to help you with your attendance long term, And that's kind of what we're trying to do in Arkansas is, put it around the entertainment so that people can extend their entertainment, and have, that good 5 hours out. So I would just tell investors to get in, get in early, but also, we're seeing such a rapid growth. This is the type of investment that if you hold on for a long time, you're going to be very happy in the end.
For sure. Well, in regards to like, you mentioned stadium and stadium size, league has a requirement. I'm not too sure if it's changed, but it was 15,000 for USL championship. But building the right size stadium for atmosphere is important. What is the size that you guys are looking for building for USL Arkansas?
Well, right. The minimum requirement for the championship is, for the standards under the United States Soccer Federation is 5,000. So we've announced a 5,000 seat. It's modular in nature, so it's very expandable. We can expand or detract. So I wouldn't expect we'd be 5,000 seats very long. We haven't put season tickets on sale yet, so we'll see where it goes. If we perform very well once we put them on sale and we reach, a 50 to 60% threshold on season tickets for these, and then we'll look at the possibility of expanding. We have adding to cost on the front side. I like to control the supply curve, to push demand. Never want to overbuild, never want to have empty seats, especially in the very beginning, because we're training people to want to come to matches. So control your curve, keep it smaller and more intimate, give them the entertainment around it, and then ultimately I think we'll be able to expand longer term and grow to those 15,000 seat stadiums in the future.
Wow. That makes a lot of sense. And that goes to show me like the experience again that you have.
Sure.
A beautiful game. So in regards to, again, going back to podcasting and doing a bit of interviewing myself.
Sure.
USL is super excited about mixed use development opportunities. Are you guys just looking at building a stadium and that's it, or is it a bigger development?
No, let me back up. So before on podcasting, we're blessed to have our managing director, Wes Harris, who actually has a lot of podcast experience. He used to run the Business of Soccer podcast, back in before 2010. Our thought was, let's not just, it's not a huge following, but there's a lot of people that are very interested in the kind of understanding the what happens or how do you do this type of stuff. And so it's a kind of behind the scenes conversation about how and what and ultimately what, how we're performing and it's not without it. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can't talk about on there, but it's pretty, we give a full understanding of kind of all the things that we're dealing with. So we're blessed there. But I think in any sports organization, it used to be that, stadium was enough, but not anymore. Investors are much more sophisticated. Teams are much more sophisticated. If you look at the construction of, I always point to Denver at Lodo, the lower Denver market where the Coors Field is located. That was an area that was not that great, right? A bunch of warehouses. Now it's, a very cool community, but the team didn't get to participate in that, right? You had a team, granted locally owned, but you had a stadium built by the government or at least government participation. But nowadays, that government participation is getting harder and harder, right? So in order for you to kind of get the type of returns that you need to provide to investors, you have to provide them with an opportunity to make a difference. So, of course, I think Brett Johnson, who you talked to recently, is a good example of some new thinking around this in our league. I just completed the project that I can't talk about. That's 40 acres, but very significant stadium project, existing existing USL championship team, but it's a 40-acre redevelopment project, right? So key is not just to provide a opportunity for investors, but it's also to make a difference in your community. So, and one of the ways we can do that is with our physical space. The other thing that does for us is it allows us to control how the buildings interact with each other instead of other people building buildings around us, where maybe those buildings don't interact with us well enough. We can control how those buildings interact. So yes, we are highly driven on that. It's part of our complication, to be honest with you, in Rogers specifically, but we're working through it. Think we'll get through it, and want to make a difference, right? So the other thing, if you can put 350, 500,000 people that live right next to you, and participate in the retail that you might be able to create, you're just making it a place that people want to come to, right? So it's not just about developing, it's about creating, in a sense, a place where people want to go to. So it's an entertainment district, if you will. They commonly use words now, but yeah, we want to make a difference physically as well.
Yeah, a place that people live, work, and play.
Absolutely.
It's something I keep hearing about. With saying that, I know you can't speak too much, speak about this, but in regards, I just had one question, if you don't mind. In regards to the
Sure.
40 acres, was it just a stadium build, or was there other hard assets built along with the stadium?
As far as what?
For the stadium, for the project that you guys did, that had 40 acres of land. Did you guys just build the stadium on it, or were there other hard assets that were built on it as well?
No, it was green space. It's yeah, so it's in the downtown area, but it was undeveloped. So it's the stadium will be the first project, but
Okay.
then there's going to be a lot of projects around that.
Okay, understood. Yeah, I just wanted to be clear on that. Okay, thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
So Warren, again, obviously going back to your track record in building successful sports franchises like Sacramento Republic FC and San Diego Loyal, what are the key factors that contribute to a successful launch of a professional soccer club in a new community?
Well, Kareem, thank you for that question, because I think that's kind of the difference that I learned in Portland, right? Because I got to watch our staff, and I participated a little bit. Keep in mind, the average attendance for the Timbers when we took over was about 600 people per game. And that's back in 2004. When we turned it around, it was it was above 6,000, right? So, and we just used our Art Savage, probably one of the best operators I ever met, saw, or worked with, had a system, and that system worked. It's about invest in people, and ultimately they will deliver for you if you provide them with the assets, tools, and leadership. So that's one, but also the what I saw there was the necessity to connect with the customer. Right? Since we didn't know soccer, we had to go learn soccer. So we had a bunch of baseball people trying to figure out how to turn a soccer operation around, right? So what do they have to do? They had to go talk to people. And when they talk to people, what happened? They actually developed relationships. And in those relationships, you're having these people that cared so deeply that they told you exactly what they wanted to have happen. That led to, if you're listening, it led to ultimately a change in your business plan or model or programming to actually help them have more fun or help them do more. And therefore, when they would look to make a commitment to you, they would make a commitment for longer or spend more money with you. And the second thing is, listen, we all have choices in life, right? And especially your generation, Kareem, you choose brands. And I think this is fairly consistent with both Gen Z and the millennials, is that it's important to connect with the brands that I feel represent me, right? So if I can provide a avenue or a way for these people to actually participate in the developing of our mission, vision, and values, you know, what the club stands for, ultimately what we're trying to accomplish, and the branding, then I've got connective tissue that I can rely upon, and it's harder to break. It's harder for them to break. I have to do some really stupid stuff, as an operator to break that relationship, right? You know, and then if we can continue that, if we can continue a way of operation by listening, it doesn't mean we say yes every time. It doesn't mean we don't have hard conversations. But what it does mean is that there is a conversation. We're listening. And I think that doesn't happen between major league sports teams and fans anymore in the United States. I mean, look at the Super League process that was talked about in Europe. Was there any real conversations going on? Because you had the fans actually speaking up and saying, no, don't do this. And then you had this corporate world saying, this is what we're going to do. The disconnect, they try to do it, and look what happens, right? So the more we actually can connect. And so what we use, what I love to do, because it's so much fun, is to actually go and develop a brand around why people care about that region. The Sacramento Republic Football Club is a name that was developed by their fans. I mean, I liked the name the Citizens. You know, I had a good friend, Tom Glick, who at the time was the chief commercial officer of Man City, the nickname the Citizens, and yet it represented Sacramento, right? The kind of citizens, you know, it's a government led by the people, you know. But through this process, the fans spoke up and said, you know, what we love is the fact that it's the head of California. It's the capital of California. And so we said, well, okay, how do we articulate that? And they said, why don't you just go to the state flag and look what the name in the state flag was? It's the Republic of California, right? So that bore the name, and they got to choose it. That, you know, and they know that. They know they chose that name, right? And so, especially the supporters group there, they became so strong in such a great relationship because we listened. You know, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, but for some reason, we all use 2 mouths and 1 ear, if that makes sense.
For sure. Yeah, I always try to use both the ears and listen.
You do a good job of that, unlike me.
Well, I'm asking you the questions, so we're looking for the answers. So, you know, the point that you just mentioned in regards to how important it is to engage with the community and listen to what they want and supply what they want is very important. It's actually something one of my advisors always mentioned, friend Mathis. He always says that about, you know, building brand and through his experience. With saying that, I kind of want to go back a little bit to corporate partnerships.
Sure.
You mentioned Walmart a few times, and you know, it had me thinking, is Walmart a potential corporate sponsor for you guys that you guys are looking at?
I'll tell you, everybody's a potential corporate partnership. Can't tell you kind of where kind of conversations are.
Yeah.
But you know, the companies like that, I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but care about their communities, right? So they care about their employees. They care about where the community is going. So, you know, it's our job to actually provide a reason for them to make an investment with us, a reason for them to spend energy in our direction, right? So we have no commitments to date. We obviously have had conversations, and we will continue to have conversations, but I wouldn't expect all of them to be involved just because they're headquartered there. You know, a lot of them have. Give me an example. You know, that's the largest company in the world, right? They need to probably spend more money on actually driving people to all of their stores versus one region, if that makes sense. So, but I know we will have a relationship with them that'll be significant. It may just be in tickets or it may just be in community. We don't know, but it's, you know, I don't want to speak for people. Of course, we'd love to have partners like that, right? But it's important, though, that we let them make decisions on their own and decisions that make sense for them.
For sure. Are you able to share where you guys are currently with USL Arkansas with the launch?
Well, yeah, we're coming out. We just announced a branding reveal to our fans on October the 3rd. It's a big step. So we haven't yet located our principal ownership. We continue to bring other people to the mix, so feel very confident in the rest, or the supporting cast or the limited partnership. That part is really good. So we haven't yet finalized a principal owner. Our goal is to do that in the first quarter of next year, and if we do then we'd be able to potentially open in 2026. That was always the goal. We are in the permitting process with the city, and what did they call their large scale development application process for the stadium, and we're, I'd say 6 weeks from finalizing that.
How long?
So once that's done, then continue to have our conversations. And, I'm also a fairly big believer that the man upstairs is really in charge. I'm just doing my job here on earth, and he's called me to the space and to make a difference. And I just, my job's to keep putting the shovel in the ground every day and let him, kind of find a way to bless it. And so pretty excited about what he's been doing. And frankly, the amount of support that we're getting in the region. I can tell you this, I've never received this type of support in a market that I've talked about, even San Diego, even Sacramento, in the very beginning. Sacramento, had its starts and stops in professional soccer, as you know, and this market's just responding incredibly well.
Yep. I'm really happy to hear about that. You had mentioned you guys are 6 weeks out from completing the process with the city. Could you share how long that process has been?
Oh, it's about 6 months to date.
Yep.
Like any development project, there's an application. Here's what we'd like to accomplish. All right, here's what the permit the zoning allows for. And stadiums are a lot of times not thought about in zoning. So we have to kind of work with the government there. Fortunately, we have the city of Rogers. It's just been a great partner to deal with. They are excited about this. It's become the family room of Northwest Arkansas.
Hmm.
And, frankly, it's pretty amazing. You got Topgolf there. You got the Walmart amphitheater. You got just a plethora of great bars and restaurants. And so to be able to add to that, there's a gentleman who's trying to build an indoor amphitheater, 1,200 seats, which I think would be awesome and cool. So yeah, it's just become a really neat place for people to want to be entertained. And the city of Rogers understands that their job. They just passed a uniform building code, which, makes it a little bit easier for them to permit projects that may be a little bit outside of the box, like a stadium. But it doesn't help us because that doesn't take effect until January 1. We're already in the process of their old program.
Understood. There was something I was just thinking about. It just slipped my mind. No.
That's okay.
Where was it?
The last question was about the city and the timetable, how long that took.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, I got it. Okay, so you used the word principal. I'm not used to that wording. Is that the same wording as primary team owner?
Yeah, I mean, so it's as you know, under the requirement of the United States Soccer Federation, that person has to be 35% of your capital stack,
Yep.
right? So it's a big commitment, right? So it in every project I've been involved with, it's the one that always takes the longest time. But fortunately, we've had really good conversations. I know it's going to happen, so it's just a matter of kind of when that happens. Again, because you can't stop. I mean, Northwest Arkansas, I'm going to make this comparison not because I believe the community is going to be like this community I'm going to mention, but it's just about the growth rate, right? So, but it's like Austin, Texas. Austin was a college town, sleepy little town that blew up once the tech industry decided to, and Dell and some others really made it a kind of place to employ people. Well, um, Walmart, JB Hunt, Tyson Chicken, Simmons Foods, the University of Arkansas made this area a place to employ people. And it's just, they have 10,000 jobs open right now with amongst them. So they can't get people to move there fast enough. My point is, it's going to be like in Austin. It's growing like Austin.
Mm.
And like Austin, right? I mean, Austin had its, the Austin FC originally, that was wiped out by the hurricane. Then you had the group that operated it in the Cirque de Americas, and now you have one of the more powerful MLS teams there, right? So that doesn't happen without the growth, and so who knows what can happen in Northwest Arkansas because it's growing at such a great rate.
Absolutely. What would you say goes into bringing on a PTO? Because you said that that does take the longest. How many conversations need to happen? What are the materials that need to be shown?
Oh, cool. Well, fortunately, you don't need those long business plans anymore. Decks are usually good enough, but it's a lot of conversations, Kareem. Let me just say that it's a lot of conversations. But if you love what you do and if you love, the difference that you make and the difference these teams make, it's all worth it. And in the end, like I said, the blessings come.
100%. And as you mentioned, digging in the ground and the man above.
Amen.
Um, so building a soccer club from scratch involves more than just creating a team. How do you approach developing a club's culture, values, and its relationship with the community, as you did with San Diego Loyal and Sacramento Republic?
Well, Kareem, every community is different. So if you take a one size fits all approach to it, you're going to fail. Um, San Diego, while in California, is completely different culture, completely different community than Sacramento. And while we had to close that team because MLS is coming, we did such a fantastic job of growing a fan base. We just weren't able to solve the stadium solution that we needed to in the time of which we needed to. But honestly, it was for me and the team that was involved. Let me say, first of all, I'm blessed because in all my projects, I've been around great people: Ricardo Campos, Landon Donovan, Andrew Vasiliadis, and the rest of the team at the Loyal. They're the ones that did all the work. I mean, I was just providing some guidance and some thoughts, but every community is different, so you have to learn the culture. So you got to research, you got to go talk to people. We start with first some listening sessions. Go out to the communities, go meet with the chambers of commerces, go meet with anybody that'll meet with you, go meet with the youth soccer community, with the adult soccer community, the playing soccer community, and then the corporate community, and then just the general public, and have a lot of conversations about what they love about their community, what they would like to make change about their community, long before you start talking about soccer. And so where you can fit in that kind of the matrix, right? And then start getting to more specific questions about what it is, they would like to see in a team, in their team, and make sure you can continue to communicate to them that this is their team. Use words like ours and yours and together and not mine and I and that type of stuff. And then you get some real basic info. Like I shared, if we could call this quality of life FC, we would, but it just doesn't make sense, right? That might have been an earlier conversation. I can't remember, but ultimately people have such a great lifestyle there. And then kind of get to more finers, do focus groups, then start an online conversation, then start asking very pointed questions. What color does that, what color represents that best, so on and so forth. So it leads to names that you wouldn't even think about. It leads to kind of a culture of listening and ultimately delivering upon what you're hearing to. So to me, that's very important, but every community is different. Don't try to, I think that's one of the challenges that, I'm seeing no disrespect to the folks at San Diego FC, and they're kind of treating it like LAFC. And I think that they could be a lot farther along than they are today had they, taken that more relational approach. I think the world of the project. I'm going to buy season tickets, so it has nothing to do with the fact that the loyalty has gone away, but just as an observer and a participant in these type of things, and it's also harder to do at that scale. I will say that, right? It is much harder to do at that scale, but I just like that process, and that process usually comes to an understanding that finds your right place with the fans in the community.
For sure. Warren, you've done a lot of building in the US. You started off in baseball, then soccer, but you've been in USL for a long time. Have you done any projects in MLS or MLS Next Pro?
No. As you know, Sacramento was a MLS effort. Back then it was, as you know, 11 of the teams in MLS to, former USL teams. And back then that was, part of the potential game plan. So I had the conversations with the MLS, was a participant in getting, obviously we got the award, right? I mean, that was pretty darn cool. But I didn't expect actually to stay on afterwards. I maybe keep some of the ownership I might have been, but I would have moved on to a different project. I'm a builder, I'm not your best operator. And in fact, the people that were on my operating teams would tell you that I'm not the best operator. So let's get people in there that really are the best. But, I'm pretty good at kind of building and bringing people together around a vision. So, but no, I haven't participated. I have no goals. To be honest with you, MLS is towards the end of their expansion. MLS Next Pro is a completely different product. It's just not something I'm interested in. How can I build a brand and a team that can make financial sense and make money? It's not about just making money, and we're not trying to do it, it's about how long we can hold the team and ultimately what the value of the team is versus, what we're actually getting, in the gates every year. But I just like the difference that the USL is making. I'm not the last thing I'll say, I'm not a Wall Street guy. I hate what, it's interesting. I was in a conversation with somebody recently, Wall Streeter, and we're talking about decision making, and he actually, it was just very interesting because he basically said his common denominator, how he ultimately makes decisions, is it against the law, right? And the law is a very low standard, if you ask me, right? I like to, if somebody tells me they're going to do something and we shake hands on it, then I believe that we're going to do it, right? That's a standard I like, versus, a contractual relationship. And that's just what our country has become a little bit more of a, let's make sure we're protected type of thing, right? But there's a difference between MLS and USL. And that difference is, Wall Street versus Main Street, man. Our teams are a balance in our league of the financial security that, the major leagues are trying to provide and portray, right? But the European model that are much more about the communities and the social aspect of it, right? So that's why our teams do so well in their local communities and make such a difference in their local communities, because we have the best of both worlds, right? It's not just about financial security and eyeballs and what my deal on TV looks like. It's like, what are we doing in the community? How does it make a difference? And how does that help us, be more successful in stadium?
Absolutely. I mean, I love that point in regard. Well, Warren, I'm old school like you. I like to do a handshake, and that's our trust, word for word. But throughout the last year, I've been advised to start using more and more agreements and being more formal. So yeah, I mean, it is the way it is. But yeah, I'm just like you. I'm old school. Um,
I think, Kareem, my only advice to you is, yeah, and it took me a long time. Somebody told me that I was very naive in business, and they were right. Um, but what all you're doing is formalizing the relationship. It's not, and in all fairness to both sides, the other thing I've learned in this is, even though we might have shaken hands, we might not have fully understood what the other party is saying, right?
mm,
So I do this with my wife all the time. I think she said, "Here's what I say," and then she heard something completely different, right? So I think it is good now, and I would, suggest the same for you, is to just formalize them. It's not
yeah,
hard to do.
for sure. And it just the transparency and everyone knows what the tasks are or what the goal is. Yeah. Um, I know we're coming up here on time, so I'm just trying to find the next best question to ask. Um, so you've led teams that have excelled both on and off the field. What would you say are the core strategies you use to ensure that clubs perform well financially and in terms of fan engagement as well as competitively on the field?
Well, again, for strategies, I mean, it's get good people around you, make sure you have the right amount of bodies, make sure you have the resources. Um, and trust me, I've made my mistakes, man. And I've, had Art Savage not passed away, and I could, relied a little bit more on him. I maybe not have made the as many of those mistakes, but um, it's all about kind of helping those people be successful. Servant, to me, it's servant oriented leadership. Here's where we're trying to go. Let them participate in understanding where we need to take the ship. Always focus on the what we need to do, right? Because you can run a great company that doesn't meet the financial requirements, and you're just not going to be around that long. And it may have been a lot of fun, but you still have to ultimately, meet those standards. So, but let them participate in those, help drive them, right? But ultimately, let them participate, and then create a culture ultimately of teamwork, communication,
Yep,
working with each other. It's the same thing that you do on the field every day.
for sure. Um, the last question I have, before I got the last like two fun questions for you. Looking back on your career, what has been the most rewarding project or milestone for you? And how has that shaped your approach to your current work with USL Arkansas and other initiatives?
Well, it wasn't a soccer project. It was a philanthropic project in Sacramento. I was part of a team that wanted to and then delivered a very unique science center. We just, a group of us really were concerned about where California is going from an education system, the lack of education on math and science and engineering, and the whole idea was to kind of illuminate minds. It ultimately led to a very successful project that opened up a few years ago, but it was a long-term haul. It was one that we had to gut check each other on a lot, but it's called the SMUD MOSAC, and it's doing very well in Sacramento. But I think it's the that and my other projects, the things that I've learned is the stick-to-itiveness. The only reason Rayleigh Field was successful and we were able to bring the Sacramento RiverCats is because I just stuck to what I really felt was the right thing to do. Somebody offered us a free stadium, about 5 miles outside of downtown. It would have been a great solution, easy, but it wasn't the right location. All right. And that right location led to a much more successful endeavor. So stick to it. Understand that you got to find a way to choose the narrow path, not the large, not go through the large gate. And the narrow path is always harder, right? It's always, you stick to your guns, you stick to what you know to be the truth. Be flexible enough to know that if there's another solution that helps you accomplish the same thing that you're trying to accomplish. But no, I think for me, it's, it's just been kind of stick-to-itiveness, if you will. I'm just too stupid to give up.
Well, never giving up there's a saying that I really love by Napoleon Hill: a quitter never wins and a winner never quits.
Well, there's some in between there too. Right?
Yeah.
For me.
So some fun questions. I'll start off with this one. Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi.
What are your thoughts on Messi in the MLS and being here in the US in Miami?
I think it's unbelievable. It's another step towards getting players that coming. Granted, he's at the end of his career, but he's still good, right? And can go anywhere. There have been players that have come here towards the end of the career that might not be able to play elsewhere. Obviously, a Abramovich example otherwise, but I think it's great, right? And it only helps us at our level, right? It just brings more awareness. And I think, most of the fans I know are fans of an MLS team and their local USL championship team or their USL League One team, right? So, hopefully, and the European team, right? So I think we all have a handful of teams that we kind of root for. And so I think it's great. I think it's fantastic.
Absolutely. And the last question that I have, which we kind of touched on already before, but I'll just re-ask it in a different way. What are your thoughts on the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and are you looking at attending any games?
Of course, like every fan, I'm going to be trying to get to the ones that, that make the most sense for me, probably the ones in California. But I'm really excited to first of all, it's amazing, even soccer fans, and you've seen it, I remember it was 2006. I was in New York City during the World Cup. It was the year Italy won, and we're in, I think it was the year Italy won. Anyways, we're in Little Italy, and people were walking down the street, and we're kind of halfway in the Portland Timbers effort, right? So I'm watching, but I'm watching like how the fans actually got to the TV, right? How they actually got to sport. It's fascinating to watch how they watched other human behavior and then got interested in it because of the other human behavior, right? So they saw people chanting, they saw people singing, they saw people having fun. And what did they do? They started to try to have fun, right? So that's what I'm really looking forward to see is, kind of how the population that hasn't yet come. And I know you've seen it where even the non-soccer fan all of a sudden becomes a soccer fan because they're a fan of the United States, right? And that's so cool. And I mean, in no other event, no other, everyone, baseball calls it, what the World Series. It's not a World Series, right? They have the Classico, but that's, this is a true competition every 4 years that you have to compete to get into, right? And then when you get into it, it's a real competition, right? It's not. So I'm looking forward to really the soccer IQ going from here to here in the United States because they're tuning in, because they love the country, because they're actually seeing the difference that's happening. Hopefully our team gets better. I thought we were going to be better than we were right now, but at least how we're performing. But I'm pretty confident they're going to do much better by the time 2026 comes around.
Yeah, it's going to be so exciting to see the United States men's team win a World Cup. I think I've heard Brett say it or a few other people say that the women's are carrying the U.S. national team after winning the 2026 World Cup and all the success that they've had.
Kareem, if I could just spend 2 minutes, I know we're coming to the end here, and I'm going to need to go too, but the women's game is so important. Let's forget about kind of where men's game have been, but we have 40,000 D1 level college women soccer players who don't get the chance to go off and play elsewhere, right? And we have, we'll be, I think, 14 NWSL teams. We now have 8 Super League teams. All of a sudden, we have a place for those women to go that isn't just abroad, right? And where they can chase dreams like the men are doing. And I think it's so important that we actually help the women accomplish ultimately to develop a successful league. So we in Arkansas are very much looking forward to playing that difference. All my projects, I'm very much looking forward to, like, how can we do this? How can we do it right? Right. And the other thing is, how can we do it so it's women led, so that it's not us trying to figure out how to do this for the women. It's the women actually elevating themselves, and then we could help, but let's let them, because I mean, I had to make a lot of mistakes, right, to get to where I'm at, and let's help them accomplish that as well. So to see where the women's game is going, to see the growth, and it's gonna skin its knees, it's gonna bruise, it's gonna get hurt, but let's all try to lift it and continue to help it.
100%. Warren, that was actually a question I forgot to ask, but thank you for sharing that. Um, and I'm super excited to see the continuation of the project with USL Arkansas. The last plug-in, where can the fans, our viewers, learn more about your project?
Well, then go to the website, USL Arkansas. We'll have on the 3rd, we'll announce a new brand, so the website will change, but it's pretty simple. All of our social media is USL Arkansas. Feel free to just chime in and go right to give us your name, and we send out updates every now and then directly, but most of it's social media type stuff. And then a podcast is another great opportunity for them. And doggone it, I know you can get the podcast through the website. So,
Yep. Well, Warren, thank you so much for taking the time for being on the One Soccer Nation podcast today.
well, Kareem, I appreciate what you're doing, man. I look forward to seeing how I can help. And, for you to have a podcast that's focused on the growth of the game, and to have folks like Brett and myself, we're lower division guys. You can go to the upper division and get a lot more interesting people, but these communities that we're involved are still pretty darn cool communities. I love what Brett's doing in Rhode Island. As a great example, right? Anyways, look forward to seeing what your project will be and see how we might be able to help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Warren.